Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack the absolute essentials for quantifying your operations in the waste management sector. Look, if you're deep into sustainability reporting, you already know the numbers can get super complex really fast. So, we're breaking down the 4 general activity metrics defined by the SASB standards. Think of this as your definitive guide to getting your operational data totally standardized so it actually makes sense to regulators, investors, and honestly, your own internal teams.
But before we dive into the heavy stuff, greenhouse gas emissions, fleet fuel management, recycling rates, we need to ask a much more basic question. How do you actually measure the true physical scale of waste management? Think about it. If an investor is looking at 2 different companies, how do they know which one is literally larger? Or how to put their environmental impact into proper context? You can't just look at revenue here. You really need to see the physical footprint. And that brings us right to activity metrics. So what are they? Basically, these are metrics that quantify the scale of your specific activities or operations. They're meant to be used right alongside your other sustainability metrics to normalize your data. It's kind of like the legend on a map. They give your raw sustainability numbers real context, which lets us make true apples-to-apples comparisons across the entire waste management industry. Without them, well, a company's total emissions or accident rates completely lack the context of their actual operational size. Which brings us here. This overview straight from the SASB standards perfectly outlines our entire focus for today. We're looking at 4 precise activity metrics you absolutely must accurately report. Codes IFWM000.A through D. They cover the whole shebang: your customers, your vehicles, your facilities, and the actual materials you manage. Mastering these 4 codes is literally the baseline for standardized industry reporting. It might look simple on the surface, but as we're going to see, the definitions have some very specific guardrails. Okay, so here's our quick roadmap for today. First, we'll cover categorizing your customer base. Then, counting fleet and facilities. Next up is tracking total materials managed, and finally, perfecting your standardized report. Let's get into it. Section 1. Categorizing your customer base, decoding IFWM00.A. So when you're reporting your total number of customers from metric A, you can't just throw out a single massive number. The standard actually requires you to put your customers into these 5 highly specific buckets: municipal, commercial, industrial, residential, and other. And this breakdown is incredibly important, right? Because the waste profile, collection methods, and even contract lengths vary wildly between, say, a giant industrial factory and a quiet suburban neighborhood. So by splitting your customer count into these 5 categories, you're painting a really clear picture of what your business model actually looks like. Now, there is a massive pitfall you need to watch out for here, specifically with that residential category. The standard is super clear on this. The residential scope only includes customers that have direct contracts with your entity. So if you're picking up trash from homes, but you're only doing it because you want to contract with the city, those homes do not count as residential customers. For this disclosure, homes serviced through a municipal contract have to go into the municipal bucket. It's a critical distinction so you don't end up misrepresenting your direct consumer base. All right, moving on to Section 2, counting fleet and facilities, where we're mastering IFWM000B and IFWM000C. For metric B, honestly, the requirement is beautifully straightforward. You just need to report a direct quantitative count of your total vehicle fleet size. That's it. This number is absolutely vital because in this industry, your fleet is usually one of your biggest capital expenses. Plus, it's the main source of your fuel consumption and mobile emissions. Getting a standardized count of your vehicles right now allows analysts to normalize all your fleet fuel management metrics down the line. Then we hit metric C. Here, you have to systematically report the number of facilities your entity actually owns or operates. And just like the customers, you've got to categorize them into specific types, 6 of them to be exact: landfills, transfer stations, recycling centers, composting centers, incinerators, and a final catch-all bucket for all other facilities. This breakdown is what shows the real physical infrastructure behind your operations. Do you lean heavily on landfills? Or is your setup geared more toward recycling and composting? This count basically tells the whole story of your operational priorities. But wait, there is a really essential technical note for metric C. When you're counting these facilities, you absolutely must include closed landfills that you still own. Why? Well, because closed landfills still need management. You're still monitoring for leachate, dealing with gas emissions. They are absolutely still a huge part of your environmental footprint. On the flip side, though, that all other facilities category explicitly excludes your corporate offices. Remember,
This metric is all about your operational waste management footprint, not your administrative real estate.
Let's jump into Section 3, Tracking Total Materials Managed, unpacking IFWM-000.d.
Now, the standard gives us a definition here that is both very specific and surprisingly broad. Metric D asks for the total amount of materials managed. But what does managed actually mean in this context? According to SASB, it simply means handling discarded materials. That's it. It applies equally whether you're treating those materials, processing them, or literally just moving them from point A to point B. If it passes through your operational control, it officially counts as managed material.
So how do you actually report all this volume? You've got to use metric tons. And you guessed it, you can't just give one grand total. Just like your customer count earlier, you have to subdivide your total metric tons managed into those exact same 5 customer categories: municipal, commercial, industrial, residential, and other. It creates this brilliant mirror effect in your data. An analyst can look at your customer count by category, then glance at your tonnage by category, and instantly understand the volume intensity of your different client bases. But hey, keep in mind, that warning from earlier, it absolutely applies to this tonnage data too. The tons managed for residences serviced via a municipal contract must be credited strictly to the municipal category, not residential. The residential tonnage scope is only for materials from homes that have direct individual contracts with you. Maintaining total consistency between how you count your customers and how you count their waste is just paramount here.
Finally, Section 4, Perfecting Your Standardized Report.
Look, across all of these metrics, whether you're counting customers, separating municipal from residential, or weighing metric tons of waste, the ultimate golden rule here is consistency. Specifically, the standard explicitly says the scope of each customer type has to be completely consistent with your financial reporting. So if your financial filings group a specific type of commercial contract under a certain revenue bucket, your sustainability activity metrics have to mirror that exact same logic. Sustainability data and financial data just can't be siloed anymore. They really have to speak the exact same structural language. So now that you've got the legend to properly map out your operational footprint, I want to leave you with a thought to provoke a deeper look at your own internal data. Are your activity metrics truly telling the true story of your scale? Are you properly including closed landfills in those facility counts? Are your residential tonnage numbers accidentally being inflated by municipal contracts? Taking the time to really nail these 4 foundational metrics, your customers, fleet, facilities, and tonnage, ensures your broader sustainability reporting is built on rock-solid, standardized ground. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Get out there and happy reporting.